We are diving into the Scrum Master's Toolkit, and today we are tackling sprint planning, committing to value, not just hours. Picture a dedicated team in a bustling marketing office in Mumbai. They sit down on Monday morning and create a massive list of tasks. Write 3 blog posts, design 5 social media ads, edit 2 videos, and update the website's landing page. They are so proud of how busy they look. But here is the problem. By Wednesday, a major client crisis hits, and by Friday, they realize they didn't actually finish anything meaningful. They completed a mountain of to-dos, but they didn't deliver a single ounce of real value. This is the classic trap. Sprint planning is technically defined as a collaborative event where the team determines what can be delivered in the upcoming iteration and how that work will be achieved. In simple words, it is not just about filling your calendar with busy work. It is about choosing the most important problems to solve so the customer is actually happy when the sprint ends. If you are just logging hours, you are working. If you are committing to value, you are performing. So, now that we've mastered the realization that we must prioritize outcome over output, you might be wondering how we decide what exactly makes it onto that precious sprint list. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the art of backlog refinement. Think of the marketing team again. Before they even start their planning session, they need a clear, organized menu of options. If they walk into the planning meeting with a vague idea like make marketing better, they are going to spend 3 hours arguing about what that even means. Backlog refinement is the ongoing process of reviewing, detailing, and prioritizing items in the product backlog. Simply put, it is your pre-game prep. You are taking those big, scary, confusing ideas and breaking them down into small, clear, and actionable pieces of work. You have probably seen this at the office, where a meeting turns into a disaster because nobody knows what the requirements are. Refinement ensures that by the time you reach sprint planning, the team already understands exactly what is being asked. It's like sharpening your pencils before you start the exam. The work itself becomes so much easier when the preparation is done right. So now that we have mastered the need for a clean and ready backlog, you might be wondering how we ensure the team doesn't just promise the world and fail to deliver. Well, that brings us right into our next step, the power of team capacity. Let's go back to our marketing team in Mumbai. They have one writer who is also working on a separate urgent project for another department, and one designer who is taking a 2-day training course. If they plan their sprint assuming everyone is at their desks for 40 hours, they are setting themselves up for a total burnout. Capacity is technically defined as the amount of work a team can realistically handle in a given period based on availability and historical performance. In simple terms, it is knowing your limits. I have seen so many Scrum Masters fall into the trap of overcommitting because they are optimistic about how fast people can work. But Agile isn't about being optimistic, it is about being realistic. If you only have 10 days of total team time, you plan for 10 days, not 12. A team that knows its capacity is a team that finishes what it starts. And there is no better feeling than that. So now that we've mastered the discipline of knowing our true capacity, you might be wondering how we turn those individual tasks into a collective promise. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the sprint goal. Imagine our team decides to build a new email newsletter template. They could list out 50 tiny tasks, but if they lose sight of the bigger picture, they might finish the tasks and still not have a working newsletter. The sprint goal is a short, concise statement of what the team plans to accomplish during the sprint. It is your North Star. It's not a list of tasks, it's a vision. Instead of saying, we will do these 10 tasks, the team says, our goal is to launch a fully functional, mobile-friendly newsletter template that increases our subscriber conversion rate. When the team hits a roadblock, they don't ask, what is the next task on the list? They ask, what is the best way to achieve our sprint goal? This focus is what turns a group of people doing their own jobs into a unified team solving a common problem. So, now that we've mastered the power of the sprint goal, You might be wondering how we actually distribute that work among the team members. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the task level planning and ownership. When the marketing team breaks down its goal into tasks, they don't just hand them out like a boss assigning homework. They look at the work and ask, who is best suited to pick this up and who needs help? Task ownership is the process of team members volunteering for work they are skilled at or want to learn. It's crucial because when someone chooses their work, they take ownership of the outcome. But here is the secret. It is still collective responsibility. If the designer is struggling to finish the graphics, the writer doesn't just sit there waiting for their turn. They step in to help, maybe by writing the copy or proofreading the layout. We aren't just a collection of individuals, we are a single unit. If the sprint fails, we all fail. If the sprint succeeds, we all succeed. You've seen teams where people say, that's not my job. That is the opposite of the agile mindset. So now that we've mastered how to foster ownership and teamwork, you might be wondering how we verify that our plan is actually solid before we officially hit the start button. Well, that brings us right into our next step, which is the final commitment and the sprint kickoff. We have refined our backlog, calculated our capacity, set our sprint goal, and assigned our tasks. Now the final step is the commitment. This isn't just a nod of the head. It is a shared, loud, and confident, yes, we can do this. Commitment is a team's explicit agreement that the sprint goal is achievable with the work they have planned. When you make that commitment, you are moving from a state of we will try to a state of we will deliver. It's a powerful moment that builds trust between the team and the stakeholders. It means you have looked at the reality, you have looked at your capacity, and you have decided to stake your reputation on achieving that goal. Once that commitment is made, the sprint begins. You have now learned how to turn a disorganized, busy group of people into a focused, disciplined force. You aren't just managing time anymore, you are managing value. And that is exactly how you become a truly effective Scrum Master.